I don't know what I did, guys. I think somehow I ended the stream. I'm sorry about that. I don't know. So I don't know where it got to. So I'm just going to keep going from where I thought I got to. I will get to the bridge of Asirat, and I will then be given a list of my good or bad deeds. Good and bad deeds. It's in a book, and it'll be handed to my right hand in front of me if it's mainly full of good deeds, and my left hand behind me if it's mainly full of bad deeds. Once I have this book, then I have to try and cross the Asirat bridge. The Asirat bridge is said to be as thin as a hair and as sharp as a knife. That's meant to suggest that it's very difficult to cross. So I'm trying to balance across this very difficult bridge, holding this book of my bad deeds or good deeds. And if my bad deeds outweigh my good deeds, I'm going to be overbalanced on the bridge and I'm going to fall. If I fall off the bridge, I'm going to end up in Jahannam, because the bridge is from like earth to heaven. If I cross the bridge, I get to Jannah, paradise, heaven. If I fall off the bridge, I get to Jahannam, hell. So I've got to be really careful about that. So I'm trying to cross the Asirat bridge into paradise, but I've got to make sure I don't fall into hell at that point, okay? So I'm going from one to the other. I've got to cross Asirat bridge. Sorry, that stream ending really threw me off. So my one final bit of just about prophets, okay? So the prophets. The role of prophets is to bring the message of Allah to earth. The first prophet is the first man, and he's created in Allah's image, and that's Adam. He's sent to earth after eating the forbidden fruit, but Allah forgives him for this, and he is considered to be the first Muslim. His role, if he talks about what message he receives from Allah to bring to us, it's how to farm and how to live on the earth. He also chooses to name all the creatures. So our knowledge of the earth all comes from Adam, and this idea is that Adam is the one who teaches us about the planet. So Adam is a really useful one to talk about like that. He is created of 7 different colours of clay. Each of the clays is meant to represent a skin colour. As people have said to me repeatedly when I teach them that fact, they're like, what do you mean, is there only 7 skin colours? Well, not really, I don't think so. I don't think you could limit skin colour just to being like 7 different palettes. You're like, oh, you're a 6 and you're a 4. But that's the way it's phrased in the Quran, so there's not much I can do about that. And the second prophet to talk about is Ibrahim. Ibrahim is seen as the messenger who brings the idea of Tawheed, of Allah's oneness, for worshipping one God. The people before Ibrahim would worship statues and worship many gods, and it is Ibrahim who brings the idea that we should worship one God. The cool stories about Ibrahim that should be memorable, that you should be able to remember, is Ibrahim and his son, and Ibrahim and the fire that he is catapulted into. So Ibrahim and his son is the idea of that we should be willing to sacrifice everything and trust in Allah. We could link that to predestination, that Allah always has a plan. Ibrahim is told by Allah to sacrifice his son. He takes his son up the mountain. He's about to sacrifice his son. As he's bringing the knife down, Allah's like, stop. And as he brings the knife down, a sheep has been placed in the way, and Ibrahim kills the sheep and not his son. And that's meant to show that Ibrahim was willing to do whatever Allah said and trusted that Allah had a plan. Even if it was killing the thing that he loved most in the world, his son, he trusted Allah, and in the end it showed that he was rewarded. Okay. Oh, a nice little fact, I've forgotten that. On the journey up there, they have to drive away the devil. The devil is there tempting Ibrahim not to go and do this, and Ibrahim, his wife and his son throw stones at the devil to drive him away. This links to when we do the Hajj, the pilgrimage in Islamic practice, because as they get to Mecca, don't forget there's the large pillars at Mina, and they throw stones at the pillars in order to sort of drive back the devil in that sense. The story, I'm sorry guys, I'm not going to be able to do the other story of that one because I've got to go and feed a baby in a second. He rebuilt the Kaaba after the Great Flood. So the flood of Noah destroyed the Kaaba, which Muslims walk around at Hajj, and it is Ibrahim who rebuilds it. So it said that Adam built the first Kaaba, it's then destroyed by the flood of Noah. Ibrahim then rebuilds it, okay? Ibrahim rebuilds it as a place for Muslim worship. And Muhammad's role is he is the last prophet. He's the final prophet chosen. His his most important role is bringing the Quran, that he is chosen by Allah to be the person who will receive the final message, because he is a good leader, he is honest, he is true, and he worships Allah. He lives in Mecca and he sees people worshipping statues. Again, this idea comes up again and again and again, that Muslims will not have the worshipping of idols. You should focus on Allah and not on these statues, these idols. And Muhammad rejects the worshipping of these statues. He goes to a cave where the angel Jibreel turns up and tells him to basically recite the Quran. Okay, recite, say the Quran. He doesn't know what to do, but then he feels the words sort of appear in him and they come out of him, and he is able to recite the Quran. The night of power is the first night he is able to do this. Okay, the night of power is the first night he's able to do this. The night journey is another important part where he learns about how to pray to Allah and all the history of the religion, where he is taken off, if you remember, by a horse with a human head called Barak, al-Barak, who takes him off on this sort of journey up into the heavens, and he's able to bring messages. So it's not just the Quran that he brings. He does the night journey as well, where he teaches the people how to pray. And he says, look, Allah says, you're going to need to pray 5,000 times. And he's like, what? We can't do that. He says, fine, pray 500 times. He says, we can't do that. He says, pray 50 times. He says, we can't really do that. He says, fine, pray 5 times. And Muhammad's like, okay, we can handle 5 times. We can't handle 50 times a day. Okay, so you've got the message of the night journey. So if you're doing questions about why Muhammad is important, you could talk about, okay, the night of power is important when he receives the Quran. Also, the night journey is important, where he learns about the history of the religion by meeting all the other prophets. He also conquers Mecca. Once he becomes the prophet and starts delivering these messages, the people of Mecca reject him. They kick him out, and he goes away and heads over to Medina, and there's this big war, the big war between Medina and Mecca, and he leads the troops. Back into defeats the army from Mecca, goes into Mecca, and the people of Mecca are like, he is going to execute every last one of us. We were absolutely awful to Muhammad and his Muslim people. Muhammad's going to execute us all. And he doesn't. He forgives them. He reinstalls some of the positions of power, but he does destroy the statues. And he's like, right, as long as you're willing to like do it like this, we're all cool. And the people are like, okay, we follow you now, Muhammad. So you could say that not only does he get the Quran, but he also unites the people in the name of Islam. He is a great leader and military general. Okay. And just the last thing to talk about before I have to go. Okay, these 5 quotes. Only what God has decreed will happen to us. Only what God has decreed will happen to us. That means only what God has said will happen to us. It's a nice quote about predestination and the idea that God has a plan. We will call forth every people with a record of their deeds. This is about Akira and death. We will call forth every people with a record of their deeds. Everything that you do is being marked by Allah, and you will be judged for it. Okay, you have a record of all your deeds. Obey Allah and the Messenger. Okay, so not only do we have to obey Allah because Allah is the supreme being, okay, the Tawheed, the oneness of God, but we have to obey the Messenger as well. The Messenger in this sense is being Muhammad. That Muhammad is so important that we must obey his words. And for many Muslims, this isn't just listening to the Quran, but listening to Muhammad's other teachings from the Hadiths, the other things that Muhammad says. We surely sent a messenger to every community. This is the idea that prophets are important because they were sent to every community to teach us about the history of the religion. And anyone, male or female, who does good works and is a believer will enter paradise. How can I get into heaven? Anyone, male or female, rich or poor, anything, male or female, who does good works and is a believer will enter paradise. Okay, so as long as you are a believer in Islam and you do good works, you do good deeds, you will enter paradise. Okay, any questions, guys, email them to me. You've all got my email address. I don't know what I'm doing here. Hang on, just stop. Okay, I'm just going to leave that. Anyone who has any questions, send me an email and I'll try and help you. Speak to me before the assessment. I know 11E2 are doing it should be doing it on Tuesday. 11A3 you'll be doing it later in the week. Okay, so hopefully that was useful for some of you, and if it wasn't, I mean, there's not much I can do at this point. Have a lovely rest of your weekend.